I wanted it to have like a punk rock energy at that time. I wanted it to be unpredictable. You don't know what you're gonna get. I wanted it to be exciting and a little scary.
Nicolas Cage has never been one to hold back. And now, he's letting the world know exactly how he feels about some of his Hollywood peers. In a surprising twist, the legendary actor has named 5 celebrities he absolutely couldn't stand working with.
That was about staying unpredictable and trying something new again. But at the time when I did it, I think it pissed a lot of people off.
Cage, known for his crazy energy and explosive parts, isn't hesitant to upend the status quo, as evidenced by his latest announcement.
These critics say like, he's just here for a paycheck and he's phoning it in.
Even if the movie ultimately is crummy, they know I'm not phoning it in, that I care every time.
From on-set conflicts to personal grudges, these names may surprise you. Whether it's due to ego, attitude, or simply strange behavior, Cage is finally speaking his truth. And it's more savage and honest than anyone expected. Join us in this video as we dive deep into the details. 1. Seth Rogan. Hollywood thrives on collaboration, but not every creative partnership is meant to happen. Just ask Seth Rogan, who had a wildly uncomfortable run-in with Nicolas Cage while casting for the Green Hornet. At the time, Rogan was gearing up to star in and co-write the superhero flick, and he needed a memorable villain to go toe-to-toe with his Green Hornet. Cage, ever the wild card, was eager to play the role of Benjamin Chudnovsky, but on his own terms. At first, things looked promising. Cage admired director Michel Gondry and was drawn to the project. But very quickly, it became clear that his vision didn't align with Rogan's. Cage wasn't interested in being a cookie-cutter bad guy. He wanted Chudnovsky to have depth, complexity, even a sense of humanity. So far, so good. But then things took a bizarre turn. According to Rogan, Cage pitched a version of the character that involved a Jamaican accent, a white Bahamian backstory, and even voodoo rituals. None of this was in the script, and none of it fit the movie's tone. Hoping for clarity, Rogan and his team met Cage at his home. What happened next was unforgettable. Cage stood in front of them and launched into a dramatic monologue in a Jamaican accent, completely improvised and entirely unrelated to the script. Within 60 seconds, Rogan recalled, we were just staring at each other like, what is happening? If that wasn't awkward enough, things got even more uncomfortable years later when James Franco played a white Bahamian substance dealer in Spring Breakers. Cage, convinced the character was based on his scrapped Green Hornet pitch, demanded answers from Rogan. Did you tell James about the Jamaican meeting? Rogan swore it was pure coincidence, explaining that Franco's character was based on a real Florida rapper. Cage, however, didn't buy it. When Rogan later shared the story publicly, he wasn't worried about fallout. Cage already doesn't like me, he said. So he'll continue not to like me. Cage, for his part, took the high road in an interview, saying, I like Seth. He's a funny guy and clearly a good storyteller. I wish him luck with his book. In the end, this was a missed opportunity where two creative minds simply didn't click. It's a reminder that in Hollywood, for every successful collaboration, there are just as many partnerships that fall apart, sometimes in spectacular fashion. Which other celebrity did Nicolas Cage hate? Keep watching to find out. 2. Shaun Penn. Back in the early 80s, Nicolas Cage and Shaun Penn shared the screen in Racing with the Moon, a quiet coming-of-age film that marked one of Cage's first major roles. At the time, there was no visible tension, just two young actors finding their footing. Penn was already deep into his method acting phase, known for his serious, brooding performances. Cage, meanwhile, was still experimenting, slowly shaping the wild, offbeat style that would later define him. But years later, Penn made it brutally clear he had no love for Cage's evolution as an actor. In a sharp public comment, he said, "Nick Cage is no longer an actor. He could be again, but now he's more like a performer." That wasn't just shade, it was a direct shot at Cage's entire career. To Penn, there was a line between real acting and what he called theatrics, and Cage, in his eyes, had crossed it. Cage never replied publicly. There was no fierce counterattack or press war. However, the stillness said enough. They never worked together again. Penn moved on to concentrate on prestige movies, pursuing Oscars with both passion projects and serious roles. Cage, on the other hand, took the opposite approach, diving headfirst into weird, often insane characters that perplexed critics while keeping audiences wondering. Their paths couldn't have been more different. And Penn's jab? It wasn't just a critique. It was a declaration that whatever friendship or respect might have once existed had completely vanished. From secret grudges to full-blown feuds, who pushed him too far? Let's find out. 3. Vince Neil. In 2016, Nicolas Cage found himself in a headline-making scuffle, this time with Vince Neil, the wild frontman of Motley Crue. It all went down in Las Vegas, at the upscale Aria Hotel, where a night out turned into something much darker. According to witnesses, Neil allegedly grabbed a woman by the hair and yanked her to the ground in a fit of rage. That's when Cage stepped in. Cell phone footage from the night shows a visibly upset Cage outside the hotel, grabbing Neil and shouting, "Stop this now!" The two appear tangled up, with Cage holding Neil in what some described as a headlock. The clip went viral almost instantly, leaving people guessing. Was this a brawl? Or was Cage trying to de-escalate a violent situation? Neil, who has a long history of run-ins with the law, including a fatal DUI in the 1980s, was cited for battery. Cage, on the other hand, walked away without charges, but neither of them publicly explained what really happened, and the silence spoke volumes. Whatever connection they once had was clearly shattered. Cage, known for his unpredictable behavior, surprisingly played the peacemaker that night. But even as he tried to cool things down, the moment left a lasting mark, one that hinted at a friendship broken, and tensions that still feel unresolved. One wild brawl to bitter Hollywood shade. What sparked the next clash? Stay tuned to find out. 4. Kathleen Turner. Not every clash in Nicolas Cage's life happened in public. Some unfolded behind closed courtroom doors, like his surprising feud with Hollywood icon Kathleen Turner. It all started when Turner released her memoir, Send Yourself Roses, a book filled with juicy, behind-the-scenes stories, but one chapter in particular set off alarm bells. In it, Turner described working with Cage on Peggy Sue Got Married, claiming he was a nightmare on set. That might not have raised too many eyebrows. After all, Cage was already known for taking eccentric creative risks, like the strange voice he used in the film, which director Francis Ford Coppola reportedly begged him to drop. But then she went further. She alleged that Cage had been arrested twice for drunk driving, and most bizarrely, that he had once stolen a Chihuahua. That was the tipping point. Cage didn't stay silent. He sued Turner for defamation in London's High Court. The case didn't drag on long. Turner admitted her claims were false, issued a public apology, and agreed to cover Cage's legal costs. She even donated to charity as part of the settlement. It was a rare moment of Cage pushing back and coming out on top. But even with the legal win, the damage to their relationship was done. The two never worked together again, and Turner never spoke about Cage in such bold terms after that. From fiery co-stars to a rocky ex, how personal did it get? Keep watching to find out. 5. Christina Fulton. Not every feud in Nicolas Cage's life involved co-stars or casting drama. Some were deeply personal and messy. In 2009, Cage's former partner and the mother of his son Weston, Christina Fulton, filed a lawsuit that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. She demanded $13 million and the house she was living in, claiming Cage was forcing her out amid his spiraling financial troubles. At the time, Cage was facing well-publicized money problems, including unpaid taxes and properties in foreclosure. Fulton's lawsuit painted a picture of a man under pressure, trying to offload assets, even if it meant evicting someone he had once called family. The legal back and forth dragged on for nearly 2 years before the case was quietly settled in 2011. Terms weren't made public, but the whole ordeal left a stain on what was already a strained relationship. But the personal turmoil didn't stop there. In April 2011, Cage was arrested in New Orleans' French Quarter after a drunken altercation in public. Witnesses said he appeared intoxicated and had grabbed his wife's arm during a heated argument. Police were called, and Cage was taken into custody for suspected domestic misconduct, public intoxication, and disturbing the peace. It was a shocking headline for an actor already known for his unpredictable behavior. The bizarre twist? His $11,000 bail was posted by none other than Dwayne "Dog the Bounty Hunter" Chapman. Though Cage was released and ordered to appear in court, the charges didn't stick. Less than a month later, prosecutors dropped the case completely. Although there was no trial or conviction, the damage to his public image remained. These incidents painted a complex picture of Cage, clever, explosive, and constantly at odds with the world around him, including those closest to him. Whether battling a former partner in court or ending up in jail with paparazzi swarming, Cage's life off-screen has sometimes been just as dramatic as the roles he plays. Broken bonds, bitter battles. How did Nicolas Cage rise to fame, and what finally pushed him to reinvent himself? Let's find out. The Legend of Cage, from Coppola heir to Hollywood outlier. Nicolas Cage isn't just a movie star, he's a pop culture paradox, a man who straddles the line between cult icon and mainstream celebrity, between highbrow cinema and meme-worthy madness. He didn't rise to fame during the social media era, but somehow he's become one of the most internet-worshipped actors alive today. Entire podcasts exist to analyze his every career move. Why are people so obsessed with Nicolas Cage? Maybe it's because he feels like the last of a dying breed, the kind of movie star who's unknowable, untamed, and entirely unpredictable. He's both a human meme and a master craftsman, equal parts comic book nerd and avant-garde surrealist. And in many ways, that duality is baked into his very name. Cage was born Nicholas Kim Coppola, the nephew of legendary filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola. But in an effort to sidestep the weight of that legacy, he reinvented himself. He chose the last name Cage as a tribute to two polar opposites, Luke Cage, the Marvel superhero, and John Cage, the experimental composer. That alone says everything. Equal parts explosive and experimental, crowd pleaser and boundary pusher. Uncle Francis reportedly wasn't thrilled about the name change, but he still gave Cage his start, casting him in The Outsiders, The Cotton Club, and Peggy Sue Got Married. In fact, there's only one film where he's credited as Nicholas Coppola. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where he played a nameless burger flipper in the background. After that, the transformation was complete. Nicolas Cage was born. From there, his rise was fast and strange. He became a leading man in offbeat rom-coms like Valley Girl, Coen Brothers' cult classic Raising Arizona, and the Oscar-winning Moonstruck opposite Cher. By the late 80s, he was a bona fide Hollywood heartthrob. But something was always different. A 1990 Washington Post profile even opened with a sharp-edged question: can Nicolas Cage play a normal guy? But maybe the real question was, did he ever want to? Because looking back at his 100-plus film career, a clear pattern emerges. Cage didn't chase normal. He chased weird. He chased myth. He chased roles that let him throw himself headfirst into the unknown. And off-screen, he embraced that energy just as hard. There's no better example of that than his now legendary 90 appearance on the UK talk show Wogan, where Cage literally cartwheeled onto the stage, kicked his way across the set, tore off his shirt, and did the rest of the interview in a leather jacket, bare-chested, wild-eyed, and unforgettable. It wasn't a meltdown, it was a statement. I was, quote, trying to invent my own mythology, unquote, Cage told the New York Times decades later. That early version of his star persona, the unhinged movie god, was so potent, it actually appears in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent in the form of Nicky, a digitally de-aged Cage hallucination who taunts his older self and insists he stop trying to be an actor and focus on being a movie star. It's bizarre, hilarious, and painfully honest. And yet, in real life, the modern Cage is almost quiet. He doesn't flood the press with personal drama. Sure, there are viral tidbits, like the time he bought a pyramid-shaped tomb in New Orleans, or the fact that he talks to his pet crow, or that he once shared a bed with his cat Merlin. But for the most part, he keeps his eccentricities to himself. Maybe that's because Cage doesn't need to be loud off-screen. Everything you need to know about him is right there in the work. The wildness, the tenderness, the total surrender to every role. And whether he's starring in a surreal indie drama or going full-action hero in a direct-to-video release, Nicolas Cage remains completely, unapologetically, uniquely himself. And that's why people can't stop watching. Praised and parodied alike, why is Cage so hard to define? Stay tuned to find out. The world can't decide if Nicolas Cage is a genius or a joke. Is Nicolas Cage a brilliant actor or just completely unhinged? That question has haunted Hollywood for years, and depending on who you ask, he's either a misunderstood genius or the poster child for bizarre, over-the-top performances. The debate has become so famous that it's even been immortalized in pop culture. In the sitcom community, the character Abed nearly loses his mind trying to solve the riddle. Is Nicolas Cage good or bad? Cage has an Oscar. He's worked with legends like Martin Scorsese, David Lynch, and Werner Herzog. And yet, he's also known for starring in countless straight-to-streaming action flicks that critics often write off as mindless chaos. Explosions, one-liners, and wild-eyed stares. It's become a formula, and for a while, people stopped taking him seriously. But just when the world seems ready to write him off, Cage always delivers a performance that changes the conversation. In Joe, he played an ex-con with a quiet, brooding intensity. In Mandy, his guttural, grief-soaked rage left audiences stunned. And in Pig, Cage delivered one of the most subtle, soulful performances of his career, playing a reclusive truffle hunter, searching for his stolen pig. Each time, critics suddenly remember, oh yeah, this guy can act. His most self-aware performance came with the unbearable weight of massive talent, a film where Cage plays himself. Or rather, a version of himself, a down-on-his-luck actor named Nick Cage, who's desperate for a comeback and on the verge of retiring in shame. When a superfan, played by Pedro Pascal, offers him $1 million to attend a birthday party, things spiral into absurdity. The fan turns out to be a narcotics kingpin, the CIA gets involved, and Cage is thrown into a real-life action movie. It's clever, it's chaotic, and it's totally on brand. The movie leans into everything people love, and love to mock about Nicolas Cage. The bulging eyes, the sudden outbursts, the unpredictable energy that makes you wonder what the hell he's going to do next. It's that wild card factor, the very Cage-ness of him, that fuels an entire internet culture, complete with YouTube compilations titled Nicolas Cage Freakouts. Megan Mitchell, co-founder of the Cage-themed film festival Cage-A-Rama, put it best. It's that Cage element. Anything could happen at any time. So, is Nicolas Cage good or bad? Maybe he's both. Maybe that's the secret. He's not trying to fit the mold. He's out there smashing it to pieces, one wild performance at a time. Love him or laugh at him. What fuels Cage's wild style? Let's find out. A madman with a method. The art behind Cage's chaos. To call Nicolas Cage a bad actor is not just inaccurate, it's lazy. Every outburst, every offbeat choice, every wild-eyed scream has a reason. It's not chaos for chaos's sake. It's craft. Behind the mania is a meticulous mind, one deeply committed to experimenting with what acting can be. Whether he's whispering in a shaky falsetto or howling at the moon, Cage knows exactly what he's doing. And often, so do the directors backing him. Take Peggy Sue Got Married, for example. Cage made the bold and bizarre choice to give his character a helium-like cartoon voice. Co-star Kathleen Turner hated it. Executives wanted him fired, but Francis Ford Coppola, his director and uncle, stood by it. Because even when Cage makes a choice that feels insane, it's never accidental. It's part of the method, his method. In his early career, Cage was actively reshaping the boundaries of performance. In Vampire's Kiss, he plays a New York literary agent unraveling into madness after a supposed vampire bite. It's a role so unhinged, it became meme fodder for decades. But behind the alphabet reciting lunacy, behind the live cockroach-eating and Nosferatu-inspired body language, is what one critic called scorched earth acting. Cage transforms into a twitching, spiraling force of psychological decay, veering from eerie calm to full-body tantrums in seconds. It's uncomfortable, maybe even ugly, but it's honest. It's not acting for awards. It's acting as alchemy. While the 1980s and 90s were dominated by method-style realism, Cage was busy building his own experimental path. He dabbled in method once for his role as a wounded soldier in Birdie, but ultimately found realism dull. "Realism is boring," he told the LA Times in 1994. Instead, he drew from German expressionism and Japanese kabuki theater traditions that embraced distortion and heightened emotion over grounded believability. "Look at Cagney," he said in 2013. "Was he real? No. Was he truthful? Yes." Cage even went so far as to invent his own acting philosophy, nouveau shamanic. Yes, that's what he calls it. It's part mysticism, part role play, part spiritual possession. For Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, he reportedly sewed ancient Egyptian artifacts into his costume to help him channel the role. Why? Even he's not quite sure. It sounded cool, he admitted recently. But the point isn't the logic, it's the intention. In Cage's view, shamans were the original storytellers, actors of the tribe, summoning answers through myth and performance. So he figured, why not embrace that? Compared to the headline-grabbing extremes of Christian Bale or Jared Leto, Cage's methods might seem tame. But the results? They burn with a signature Cage intensity, one that doesn't need gimmicks to grab you. And yet, for all his dedication, Cage has been flattened in the public eye into something far more shallow. A meme. A shrieking face in the Wicker Man yelling, "Not the bees!" A twitching madman reciting the alphabet. A bug-eyed priest going full lunatic in Face Are Off. And while it's funny, it's also reductive. There are people who just think it's fun to watch him freak out, says Lindsay Gibb, author of National Treasure, a deep dive into Cage's artistry. They're not really seeing the nuance in him. Meme culture may have introduced Cage to a new generation, but it's also robbed him of the context that makes his performances powerful. Out-of-context GIFs can't capture the why behind the madness. They just loop it. That's exactly what events like Cage Arama in Scotland try to push back against. Co-founder Ross Mitchell says the festival actively avoids irony. Instead, it celebrates sincerity, a space for real fans who see Cage not as a joke, but as a genuinely vital artist. That ironic framing devalues him, Mitchell explains, and ultimately devalues him as a presence in other people's lives. But here's the irony within the irony. Without the meme-ification of Cage, we might never have gotten the unbearable weight of massive talent. The self-aware comedy in which Cage plays himself confronting the madness of being, well, Nicolas Cage. A recent GQ profile offered what might be the clearest summary of the man: a sincere man in an ironic world. And maybe that's why he feels so timeless and so necessary. Because in an era that often values cynicism over authenticity, Nicolas Cage shows up, gives everything, and means it. Every single time. Behind the madness was money. So how did it all vanish? Keep watching to find out. From castles to chaos, Cage's million-dollar free fall. At one point, Nicolas Cage wasn't just a Hollywood star. He was one of the highest-paid actors on Earth. In 2009 alone, he reportedly pulled in a staggering $40 million. But for Cage, the money wasn't just a reward. It was fuel for a wild and sometimes unhinged ride into material excess. Real estate? He didn't dabble. He dominated. Cage bought everything from a tropical island in the Bahamas to a full-blown medieval castle in Germany. In the US, his empire included a 24,000-square-foot mansion in Rhode Island, a legendary haunted house in New Orleans, and a sprawling estate in Bel Air, once owned by Dean Martin. He even picked up Midford Castle in England, complete with romantic ruins and history oozing from the walls. For a while, it looked like Cage was collecting properties the way others collect postcards. His shopping sprees reportedly included 15 residences, a fleet of luxury cars, including 9 Rolls-Royces, a squadron of yachts, and rare art and jewelry by the dozen. Among the more eyebrow-raising items, a dinosaur skull, a real one. He later returned it to Mongolia when it turned out to be stolen. But as fast as it all came in, it started to slip away. In 2009, the IRS hit Cage with a crushing tax bill, more than $6.2 million in unpaid income taxes, with additional liens for earlier years. His lavish lifestyle, combined with alleged mismanagement by his business advisor, set the stage for financial ruin. Cage didn't take it lying down. He sued his manager for $20 million, blaming him for reckless investments and tax negligence. In return, the manager fired back, accusing Cage of ignoring warnings and spending wildly on jets, gems, and jaw-dropping real estate. 1 year alone reportedly saw Cage drop $33 million on homes and make 47 separate purchases of exotic items. Foreclosures soon followed. The haunted LaLaurie mansion in New Orleans was auctioned off. His Bel Air estate, once listed for $35 million, failed to sell even for a third of that. Slowly, his empire crumbled. To stay afloat, Cage did what he does best. He worked. A lot. By 2017, sources claimed he was taking film roles left and right just to chip away at his debts. He even sold one of his most prized possessions, Action Comics #1, featuring the first ever appearance of Superman. It fetched over $2 million at auction, setting a record and helping ease the financial pressure. The comic had a story of its own. It was stolen, recovered years later in a storage unit, and finally returned to Cage before the sale. It wasn't until 2022 that Cage finally confirmed what fans had long hoped. The debts were paid. The chaos had passed. And the man who once seemed trapped in a spiral of financial disaster was finally free to choose his projects, not just survive them. In hindsight, Cage's wild financial chapter doesn't look like simple recklessness. It looks like a man who was living full throttle, chasing meaning through castles, comics, and ancient bones until reality caught up. And when it did, he didn't run. He worked, paid his dues, and came out stronger. Not every Hollywood story ends this way, but Cage's did. With humility, with grit, and with every check cleared. After the fall, he wasn't lost, just searching for something deeper. The Private Pilgrim, Cage's quiet search for meaning. Despite the intensity of his on-screen personas, Nicolas Cage is surprisingly guarded when it comes to his personal beliefs. Born into a Catholic family, he's careful not to let religion or any ideology overshadow his work. In fact, he almost never discusses faith in interviews. When asked whether he shared the atheism of his character in Knowing, Cage gave a typically thoughtful but elusive reply. "Any of my personal beliefs or opinions run the risk of impinging on your own relationship with the movie. I don't want to ever preach." That seems to be a guiding principle for him. Let the work speak, not the man. For all his openness in performance, Cage draws a clear boundary between who he is and who he plays. He believes in mystery, not messaging. Politically, he's just as restrained. He said he's not an activist, and he's avoided aligning himself loudly with any political movement. I learned more about nuclear power from the China syndrome than from politics, he once told a group of students at UC Santa Cruz. And yet, in 2020, he quietly endorsed presidential candidate Andrew Yang, drawn perhaps to Yang's out-of-the-box thinking and futuristic vision. Even in politics, Cage seems to gravitate toward the philosophical. Which brings us to one of the more surprising chapters in his personal life, Cage's real-life Indiana Jones moment. At one point, he set out on a very literal quest for the Holy Grail. Yes, that Holy Grail. He traveled through England, explored obscure corners of the U.S., and followed cryptic trails with the sincerity of someone truly searching for deeper meaning. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It wasn't ironic. It was Cage once again going all in. But what truly sets Cage apart from many of his peers isn't his eccentricity, it's his compassion. Beneath the wild roles and philosophical wanderings lies a heart that gives generously. He's donated millions to causes that matter. $2 million to Amnesty International to support child soldiers' rehabilitation, $1 million to Hurricane Katrina victims, and personal contributions to programs helping end slavery, child labor, and poverty through art and education. And he doesn't just write checks, he shows up. In 2023, while filming The Surfer in Western Australia, he spontaneously called in a $5,000 donation to a local telethon. No press release, no red carpet, just Cage, doing what felt right in the moment. The United Nations took notice, naming him a Global Justice Ambassador in both 2009 and 2013. This is the version of Nicolas Cage that the memes miss entirely. A man quietly living his values, not broadcasting them. A man whose generosity and curiosity are just as epic as any of his movie roles. He may be a shaman on screen, but off-screen, he's something even rarer in Hollywood. Sincere, principled, and still searching for something bigger than himself. So, what do you think about the celebrities named by Nicolas Cage? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.